Welcome back to Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show. This is your host, Eric Cicada, aka Mr. Honest, back with you for the finale of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That went by quick, and I might say because it was only 4 weeks long altogether. 3 weeks ago we just started this journey. However, I think it was a good pace that kept it at for the show to keep its momentum. I think having them release 2 episodes, 332, I think it was a good idea because I think each break, each ending where we go into the next week left it at the best cliffhanger. So I kind of appreciate how they put these episodes out. I think this is a really good formula they're trying out. I could tell they're just trying things out left and right with when to release things and how to release. For example, what if an episode a day around Christmas time for 2 years in a row? In my opinion, that kind of sunk the show. I think it would have been better to give them a week-to-week show again because there's so much going on in What If. And, it's not too much of a stretch to talk about What If because today we are talking about an animated series finale. Yes, again, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And, I'm going to be talking about both these episodes together at once. So if you've only seen the first one, for some reason, of episode 9 and not 10, I'd go watch it and then come back. I'm going to try and keep it in best order as I can. However, I took 15 pages of notes. I don't plan on reading them all to you. And I just want to say that I think I take that many notes so I know the episode in my head a little bit better. This is the kind of stuff that most podcasters could just shut up about and not talk about. However, if there's that one person out there wondering why or how or what or what's going on, I'd like to explain myself. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, praise, theories, I'd love to hear from you. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. Send your takes. What did you think of this show? Was it a ride? Did you enjoy it like I did? I thought it was really fun. Because for me, it's the first episodic Spider-Man we've ever had. A week-to-week show showing the growth of Peter Parker and the ones around him. And this is a very cool variant universe that is aligned with the Marvel Cinematic Universe in its own pocket. Tony never picked up Spider-Man. Osborn did. So how does that affect Spider-Man as a hero? Will he become a more hard-hitting hero because of what Osborn said last week? Just last week, I'll recap real quick. It was the Scorpion versus the 10th Street Gang. That was a big deal. Peter got really injured and almost died. And that's when Osborn told him he's going to have to step up or, maybe it's not the best internship for him anymore, which is a little harsh. We also got the line with great power comes great respect. I think that is instantly iconic. I love what that means for Norman Osborn. And I think it's just such a fun new world for Spider-Man to be in. The changes they've made so far to some of the heroes, the team-ups they've gone to the lengths of doing, like Daredevil and Doctor Strange. The way this final episode came together, let's talk about it real quick, where Mr. Osborn, a.k.a. Future Green Goblin, he is wreaking some havoc. He's not that great of a guy. He's not horrible, but he definitely has intentions that aren't even being stated, and they're hinted towards. Taking Peter's blood was a theory that I've been hearing about and agree. That was going to lead to something, but I didn't really notice it as I was watching it. It kind of took me by surprise even today when I saw all those spiders Norman Osborn's creating. He's trying to make an army of Spider-Men for himself or something. Up until these last 3 episodes, it did really, to me, feel like Norman Osborn had good intentions with Peter Parker and Spider-Man. However, the character in the multiverse is a villain. He's an opportunist, and he is actually evil. And he's going to turn into the Green Goblin. And it's going to be a far more deeply rooted story of him turning in and becoming the Green Goblin, because we like Harry. We know who Harry is. We like him. And we know Peter has a connection with him too. So it's going to be a real tough moment to have to actually fight Osborn as the Goblin. That's why he's one of the biggest, I think, villains in Spider-Man's catalog, simply because he has, like Spider-Man, a whole other life he's dealing with on the outside. So I like parallels. There's some good parallels. For example, in the Spider-Man 2 game, post-credit scene, skip ahead 20 seconds if you don't want to hear about this. Okay, in the Spider-Man 2 post-credit scene, we see we see Norman Osborn visiting Dr. Octavius in jail. It's just these moments that mirror each other, and I even would think the game is going to do something to nod to a show like that. Or if it didn't, it was just similar and it's in the same vein. I don't know. I just like these two characters coming together. I like when they met in No Way Home too, because they knew each other and they were both surprised to see each other there, Doc Ock and Green Goblin. However, the Green Goblin is proving to be just the Green Goblin. And same thing with Doc Ock. Maybe the last, if not the second to last scene we got at the end was Doc Ock in jail behind bars, but over his whole cell, he had animated all his tentacles. And I think he's got in his mind what he wants to do when he gets himself out of there. He's going to go full Doc Ock on us. And when Norman visits Otto, it's very spiteful, very rude, very personal. And he really knows just what button to press to make Otto lose his mind. I like the dynamic. It shows us a little bit of Norman's true colors and a Breaking Bad sense. It gives me a little bit of a Breaking Bad feeling. I'm not going to lie to you, with Giancarlo Esposito, aka Gus, having the let's say resentment from Hector Salamanca, and I think his name is Hector, the guy with the belt. He traumatized Gus, so Gus later traumatizes him, and he holds it over his head, and he says, I killed your whole family. Blah, blah. Sorry, this is a Spider-Man show, but basically it reminded me a lot of Gus and the Salamanca, because he's telling Octavius, I took your lab, I took your inventions, I took everything from you, and you're just going to rot away in this cell. I mean, that is what supervillains are made out of. Osborn used to work with or for Norman Osborn before they split paths and things went bad. As you know, Osborn's leaving, something I believe maybe got to his head a little bit. Dr. Octavius was said, which, like I just said, I think he's an opportunist, and 1,000 of Norman Osborn's isn't worth one Otto Octavius. So that feud, I'm sure, will continue. I think if he busts out of jail, I think the first person he's going for is Norman Osborn. So we get a lot of mixed signals from Lonnie, like in which way or direction his character is going. It seems like he's going in this universe down the anti-hero path. He's sticking with the 10th Street Gang. At the end of the final episode, he threw away his football jacket, which probably meant the most to him in his entire life before like the series started. And when the series started, he was a proud football player and turned into gang leader Tombstone. And we got to see a big transformation on his part. Not a huge Spider-Man villain in any of the movies or games, maybe some of the TV shows, which I haven't seen. But I think it's really cool they're giving a character like Lonnie / Tombstone a complete arc, which will, again, really put Peter through challenges that he doesn't want to go through, having to fight people he cares about, and believing that they can turn good again. You know, Peter's always about second chances, and if he could pull anyone back from the dark side, I think it would probably be Lonnie in this universe. And him and his crew are hijacking a truck. I believe it was Norman Osborn's secret inventions and stuff, kind of some of the Otto Octavius stuff that he was talking about. That goes insane. The car almost derails and crushes Nico, and Peter jumps in his new Spider-Man suit just to save things. Just in time, is what I meant to say. And, we got teased that suit was coming from last week when Harry made it for him. Harry is becoming a more efficient guy in the chair, and it seems like he's the Osborn that actually cares about Peter himself, and that's why he creates this company at the end of the second episode, so Peter can have a lab to work on all Spider-Man stuff, and also help the greatest minds of their generation come together and work on something. Harry is rich. I don't know if his dad is allowing him to do this, or he just has like a giant bank account that he's responsible for or holds on to, that he can make things like this happen if he wants. I mean, Osborns are, from what I know, usually very rich, like extremely rich. So the actual penultimate episode, Hero or Menace, episode 9, the main conflict of that, Peter going to find Scorpion. I don't think it was his main goal, but I think he knew he was going to run into him again because he interferes with the 10th Street gang fighting, and Scorpion's crew, and all this stuff happens so quickly. But it's really cool to see Spider-Man fighting almost like fully made Scorpion, and we've got to see how this character turned into Scorpion. So I'm loving this show for the buildup of characters. It's not your regular animated show. It's a show that goes week to week, which is probably the funnest thing you could do and hasn't really been done successfully with the Spider-Man story. So with this show's unique twist along the ways, a little bit of extra time to tell the stories that they're planning, they must have at least a season 2 greenlit, or I wouldn't expect them to end on like 5 cliffhangers. I really appreciate the fight with Peter and Scorpion because it shows how far Peter's come. He's dodging, he's dipping, he's diving. Sorry, I'm dodgeball quoting there. And, Scorpion shows up always to fight the 10th Street gang, and their boss, the guy who recruited and threatened Lonnie pretty much, he wimped out and ran away when he saw Scorpion there fighting everybody. He got in a car and he dipped. This puts the newly supercharged Lonnie, because he goes into the back of the truck. I forget why he does it, but he gets sprayed with this, whatever it is. It might be Green Goblin formula or whatever secret messed up things Otto Octavius was working on. There's a ton of stuff in there, but a canister opens and it gives Lonnie super strength. So I know for a fact that the villain Tombstone does have like a really giant strength to him. From the Spider-Man game, at least. I think he's going to become a complete villain next season. I think there's still some transformation. I think there's a lot of Lonnie left to talk about, which I'm really excited about, because if Spider-Man can make a character like Lonnie important to me, what else can they do? If Spider-Man can give us all these cool suits and then put him in the red and blue suit, how much cooler can the show get? A lot cooler. I think it's on a good track. I hope it did decent numbers. Spider-Man usually does, right? If it didn't, man, what are we gonna do? That's like kind of how I am with What If right now. I try and see the bright side of what I'm watching. I really love Captain America, but despite the criticism I had going in, and you know what, a lot of the fans, they seem to agree. 80% Rotten Tomatoes. So, we're getting there. We're getting there. I ran a little off topic here, but this is connected to the MCU in such a way that I love. I think the last episode was my favorite. But let's finish talking about some of the big moments of the episode 9 before we jump to that. So Peter finally wins against Scorpion with Lonnie's help. And that goes to show, like, Lonnie has real hero potential. He doesn't have to use his powers for bad. He has to use his powers for good. But the way we leave him this season, it definitely seems like he's going down the bad route, but at the same time, he joins Harry's company. So he's definitely drawing a line of morality that Spider-Man tends to do, keeping his 2 separate lives apart and, having them not meet. That's never a guarantee. We know Spider-Man always has villains creeping into his life and threatening people he loves, and maybe that's what it'd take for Lonnie, a leader of a gang now, someone who's dragged into it. Now he's the leader. We might get some lessons about that next season. So, yeah, the fight with Scorpion was cool. There was a time in this podcast when I'd write down every fight move. Like, Spidey does this, Spidey does that, Lonnie does this, and that, and that. You just watched it. I just watched it. It was an awesome fight. We both know it. Or maybe you didn't. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. What could have this show or last 2 episodes done better, in your opinion? Or was it perfect? I want to know your thoughts. Scorpion eventually shocks himself with the power box while going in for a jab, and Peter's trying to take him out with his own tail, thinking of the line, with great power comes great respect. You can't hold back. Norman's in his head. Norman almost made Peter kill. Spider-Man usually doesn't kill on purpose. So who stops him but Lonnie? That's a switched, and I think we said that's a switched narrative in which each character does have a dark side and each character has a light side. And I think that really just shows us that it's not as black and white as every Spider-Man movie and or superhero story could tell you. In the movie of this, we wouldn't see any of the good in Lonnie. However, the show gives us a chance to invest in characters, see where they go, and have an emotional attachment to them in a way that sometimes movies can't give you right away. It's so the third Spider-Man No Way Home for me to feel like, ooh, yeah, Tom Holland, he's Spider-Man. Like, he's my favorite Spider-Man now. Because of the story they put him through in the MCU, how the things he gets to see, all the places he gets to go, he's a much different Spider-Man than we've seen before. That's what makes him so interesting. And I'd say the same goes for this Spider-Man. Not, I wouldn't say even more interesting, but in a sense, you're very curious about what's going to happen when big world events happen in the MCU. Like, I can't stop thinking about right now the arrival of Thanos, the Infinity Stones, the Avengers being split up. I think that'll be the snap itself. That could happen during this series. And will Peter be snapped? Or will he stay alive? In the movies, he got snapped. Maybe all of Peter's friends will get snapped, and he'll be growing up. And when they come back, he'll be older Spider-Man, vice versa. It's so curious. And I know that event is going to happen because in these episodes, they've referenced the Battle of New York. They've referenced other MCU fights. And it's looking like that this is really lined up for the Infinity War storyline to happen in the background of this show. I like to think that this Spider-Man has no idea what's going on. He probably will be curious about the big ship landing in the beginning of the movie. He might be there. But I would assume maybe like the heroes tell him to go back because they don't know him and he's just a kid. Doctor Strange knows him, so maybe he'll invite him to the fight because he's fought with him before. So much to think about. Will they cross over at all? Will Peter even be there? I don't know. And that's another exciting thing to me. I don't think if there's 3 seasons of the show, that would happen in the 3rd season. But I think this show can do like 5-6 seasons if it's received well and the people in Disney like it. And it's not spoiling the movies for anyone. For me, it scares me a little bit. Personally, I already really love this show. And like I love What If. And 3rd season was rushed. And they just wanted to get it out. And I'm not, I don't respect that. It's like one of the few things I don't respect from Marvel because you really brought a fan base in. And I mean, I get it. You got to save money. You can't keep every project going if it's not getting the numbers. However, What If has enormous potential to become a retrospectively huge success. And I think they might know that too. To have 30, well, be like 27 episodes, right? Of What If for people to watch and give their opinion back online and rate. They might want to give it a year and see if people are still watching it. And then they'll bring it back when the multiverse saga kind of concludes. So this multiversal show can spread its wings and really do whatever it wants without having to affect or worry about it affecting the main MCU. At the end of this episode, Peter is accepted by Nico, and she understands why he didn't want to share that part of his life with her just yet. It's kind of ironic. Maybe she realized she's holding a major secret with the necklace she's wearing, and that's a big mystery, and maybe she's not telling Peter about that because it's something that she doesn't want to hurt, harm, have him involved in. Nico's a very interesting character. She's one of the few characters who doesn't show us all her cards. She has something going on with that necklace, and I'm sure we're to learn a lot more about it. In the end of this episode cliffhanger, we get Osborn bringing in he praised Peter for what he did. So he wasn't mad that he took a suit and left after the talk last week. He was praising Peter because Peter saved his stuff. That wasn't just a truck of nothing. That was a stuff of trucks full of Osborn's stolen Dr. Octopus stuff. Osborn in this scene reveals that he's a bad guy. And like, I for some reason was hoping he'd be the anti-hero good guy. Maybe he could be still, but we learn that for one, he's got that glider and they're still working on it. Who's it for? Maybe with someone as big of an ego and access to technology, seeing people like Spider-Man and Scorpion, maybe that just already makes him want to become the Green Goblin. Maybe he already even is. You know what I mean? If that canister that blew up on Lonnie and gave him super strength works, who knows who's like that was even meant for? You know what I mean? And yeah, so he's making spiders out of Peter's blood, and that's a betrayal, just a complete betrayal, and the last thing we wanted from a good guy, Osborn. So I don't think he thinks he's wrong. I believe he thinks he's helping Peter, so Peter should be able to give back to him in the sense where I'm going to experiment on your blood and make more spider people and hopefully use them at my will as like a Spider-Man type army. WTF. It's getting crazy. So that's where we leave bad guy Norman. It took 8 episodes for us to fully see it, but I'm sure when we look back after even 2 more seasons or a season, we'll see some of his plans at work while Peter and us think he's doing good for him. He's manipulating Peter. So, which brings us to our finale episode, episode 10, If This Be My Destiny. Bittersweet to get to the end of the show so fast. We would have talked about it for 10 weeks if it was week to week. However, Marvel made the wise choice of cutting it down to 4. And I thought that was a good idea. I thought these last 2 episodes fit really well together too. The beginning of the episode is a short notice, like, the football jocks are saying they lost, because Lonnie was a great football player. He probably would have helped them take the championship. They're looking at a glass case where there's no trophy where it would be. The effects our characters have on the world around them. I mean, it's just such a solid thing, like to show that, oh, Lonnie's not on the team, they lost. Simple little things like that, show don't tell. It really adds to the story. We get some classic Spider-Man antics at the beginning of this episode where Peter's fighting crime and Harry's telling him he needs to get back to school because Pearl, Lonnie's ex, is waiting for him to do their presentation, which they don't have. And Peter's fighting crime. He stops a car thief, and then he gets back to school just in time with his diorama, which broke. However, the girls in his group delivered a perfect speech, and they got an A-. I'd take it. So many things happen in this episode, but they happen pretty quickly. A lot of action. So I'll do my best to break that down good. Peter's back at Oscorp, and he's with his group, and then Amadeus Cho, who I believe in the comics becomes a version of the Incredible Hulk. They might be setting this up for the movies, getting us more familiar with the character. Personally, I want to see Ruffalo's Hulk go big angry again. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. My current Ruffalo theory, he says that he's got the best of both worlds of Hulk and him, and Banner and Hulk are working together. Something tells me he repressed Hulk to a point where you're seeing the bare minimum of the Hulk's power, and he can't get out and rage because that's a different entity in his head. I think, it's always a complex story with Bruce Banner. However, that's not really our topic of today. I'm hoping one day we'll be able to talk about a new Incredible Hulk movie. World War Hulk definitely sounds like the winner, according to comic book fans and Screen Crush and people alike. Meanwhile, Spidey gets some nice, just like feedback on the news. Spider-Man is kicking some butt, and it's definitely granting him some happiness, you could tell. Once the presentations are done, they go to Norman's lab, and he's showing them something called Project Monolith. Every single creation that every lab student and intern did, they were building to make something for Norman without them knowing, which is like a space tunnel, like a Doctor Strange level portal that'll bring you other places in the universe, an Einstein-Rosen bridge. And they successfully did it not long before Doctor Strange himself shows up. I didn't get a chance to see if it was Benedict Cumberbatch. If it is, God bless his soul. If it isn't, it didn't bother me, and I thought he totally sounded like Cumberbatch. And I was very invested in the story. He does not want to allow Norman to do this, but does. Norman gets it done, opens it, then the giant Venom monster comes out. It took me a while to realize it's the same one that we saw in the first episode once Peter got a spider bite, which is so cool and time travel-y and confusing with time loops. Doctor Strange's time stone is still intact. We haven't had Infinity War yet, so he's able to set back time or use time to his advantage. He wants to try and throw the by the way, the spinning rings that he uses to teleport look so good. Like, they look identical to the movies. And by the way, he tries to take him to the dark dimension, but somehow he takes the creature back in time to where we first saw him to fulfill those series of events, showing us that the universe does and carries on upon its will, whether it's Kang controlling the timeline or destiny that Spider-Man always must become Spider-Man under any circumstances. So these events will always lead up and then circulate and loop and happen in order so he can become Spider-Man. This event at the end of episode 10, if this didn't happen, if the lab wasn't used, if the spider wasn't sent through the portal to go back in time and bite Peter wouldn't have become Spider-Man. So kind of a crazy full circle thing going on in this episode, because Doctor Strange at first doesn't even acknowledge. He actually says, "What are you talking about when I destroyed Midtown High?" Osborn's like, "Stop him," because he thought that he was the guy who did that, but no, that was him in the future. So he did end up destroying it that night. However, time loops, it's not multiversal like some people might think. It's just the loop within that universe. So when he's opening up portals and making time loops, time loops can happen within one universe, no branching timeline. This show starts off on a branch timeline, so any other branch timelines are a timeline branched off another branch. Loki supports this. I don't know how big this show is going to get. I am watching with, my greatest content. I'm excited to be here every week for Spidey. No hard feelings if this is received as a bad show. I'd like to know why. Personally, I could probably be a little more critiquey, but I'm really excited with what I watched. And in general, you're going to get a little more positivity from me. I always like to try and see the good in things before I see the bad. If something's glaringly bad, I'm going to talk about it. And I'll just say Secret Invasion, they could have done, they should delete it from the canon because it was so poorly done. And that's the one thing I really think that about with MCU. And it has nothing to do with Samuel L. Jackson. He was the, honestly, Lord and Savior of that show. I freaking love Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. It was just more about the writing and the way things were revealed and the pacing. And let's not get negative. Let's just say this animated show kicks that show's butt. Some of the stuff that Osborn's saying before he opens up his rift into space, he's sounding very manic and way too supervillainy, like out of nowhere. Like, for example, he says they'll all have the power of gods once they can harness picking up little scraps from the universe and creating. He is a little bit kooky. I think he's got a god complex growing. I'm pretty sure he's going to become Goblin without even having to take anything. Because I think this Norman Osborn's playing things very politically, but eventually he's going to go full supervillain and take on that glider. Personally, prediction on that? Probably next season's finale. I would say. That sounds right. We need more of a Goblin buildup. If anything, season 3's got to be it. It could be like the Goblin storyline might be the one they want to save for the very last of the series. So maybe Norman will keep going down a dark path. Peter will see it. Peter will have moral dilemmas because Norman's been his mentor, but Norman is clearly doing things that aren't right. I'm excited for that story. The Green Goblin was told so well and played so great by William Dafoe in Spider-Man, the original with Tobey Maguire. And Dafoe still brings it No Way Home. So there's a big shoes to fall into when it comes to being the Green Goblin. However, the animated show, it gives him a whole different twist. So seeing him become the Goblin after being such a good guy, helpful, maybe even genuinely wanting to protect, seeing him turn bad over the course of the show, it's good. It's a great character journey. And even the way he has his guards take down Doctor Strange and was so ready for that, man, that was, I didn't like seeing that. That was a bad guy thing. You're not a bad guy yet, Norman. Stop. Spidey gets caught in the dark dimension for a second before Strange pulls him out. I like that too. There's a lot of things I loved about this. So Peter and Strange eventually get the original bridge open so they can send the creature back where it came from. And there's even more Venom-like monsters coming for them. So creepy. Strange puts his big shield over the portal to save them, and Peter eventually gets it closed. But when he closes it, it cuts off a tiny little piece of symbiote, which the last scene with Norman Osborn of this season, it's him finding that symbiote later while he's alone in the lab. So what is he? He experiments on everything. That thing's going to be experimented with. We already got the symbiote going on its parting on its journey throughout the show. And that time paradox where Peter gets bitten by the spider and his school gets destroyed, that's got to be an absolute point in time for this universe. For those who don't remember from What If Doctor Strange lost his heart not his hands, an absolute point in time is something that has to happen in a universe that can't be changed. No matter what is done to do it, or how many times you go back in time to fix it, it has to happen for that universe to go on for some reason. In this universe, that paradox where Strange goes back in time and destroys the school and fights the monster, I think that is absolute for sure, because it has to do with Peter becoming Spider-Man. As we're learning more about anchor beings, I'd assume that Spider-Man is the anchor being of this universe. I'll be honest though, I haven't said this yet. Man, maybe I'll wait. No, I'm going to say it because it needs to be explained more. I don't like the idea of anchor beings. Like, the world existed for 2,500 million years, however long. You're telling me every anchor being in every universe is from the same 100-year span timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I don't buy it. I don't like it. I don't buy it yet. It's got to be further explained. I hope they make it, like, at least, like, makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, it's explained, but it still doesn't really make sense. Hey, I was critical. See? I can be critical. Osborn does tell Peter that he's ashamed of this, or he didn't mean for this to happen. Did he mean for this secretly? What do you think? MarvelManiacPod at gmail.com. Was Norman, like, kind of hoping that this would work in his advantage somehow? I think the symbiote was at least a surprise. Personally, I think Norman has the intentions of doing good things, and I think he gets in, like, manic states of mind where he can't focus on anything but the thing he's obsessing over. Like, as you can see, if someone gets in his way, he's going to stop them at all costs from doing what he wants. If they're going to try and stop him from doing what he wants, he's going to stop him at all costs. Sorry, I said that 2 times. I love the Spider-Man and Doctor Strange team up. It's the kind of stuff that I could dream of in this series. And I know Spider-Man doesn't meet Iron Man yet, but there's that fact that 2 of his mentors, the 2 he goes on the spaceship with in Infinity War, they're all crossing paths in one way or another. And Doctor Strange already crossed paths with Spider-Man, knows him before Tony ever did. So I think there is actually, and I've been talking about this a little today, I think there's potential for Spider-Man going on adventures with the Avengers. And I wonder how much they'd show of that. Probably not as much. I'd assume the Avengers stuff would be off screen. However, I have no idea. That's what's so fun about this show. Like, the rap song at the beginning with the Spider-Man, that brings me in every time. I'm so friggin' down with the show. Down. Not done. Down. I'm rolling with this show. Nico suggests to Harry that he opens up his own company for geniuses of his age, and he can do it because he has lots of Osborn money, and it's a place for Peter to practice and become Spider-Man even better, without having to answer to anyone. So it seems like Harry's taking over Norman's spot. Will there be bitterness over that? Maybe, but I think we might see another Spider-Man, maybe even a Venom or something show up next season because of Norman being jealous or left out or unappreciated. However he decides to get worse and more evil, I'm down for him, ready to see. They gave us already a lot of good in that character, so it's already hard to see them do bad things. Strange was very upset about what happened to the school and all the damage and how it wasn't supposed to happen, even though it was. There's something that Spider-Man says in this episode that I don't know if I've ever heard Spider-Man say, at least very early on, and it's, "This is who I'm meant to be." He loves being Spider-Man, and he undeniably takes on the role as Spider-Man with selflessness. Strange praises Peter for being wise for his age. Love the camaraderie. Where's this going? I want to know. I'm loving this. I got a watcher spotting. I don't know how many of you got it. To me, it was pretty obvious. However, maybe you missed it. At the time mark 22:52 on the last episode of this series, you will see beyond Doctor Strange's left shoulder, the Watcher definitively in the sky watching over them. So this must be a big moment in Peter's story. Like I said, possibly even an absolute in time. Worldwide Engineering Brigade Web is what Harry puts up. People he's emailing and talking to. One of them is Ned Leeds on the board. So we might see Ned in this show. Maybe they'll become friends. Daredevil is 100% still looking out at Osborn and checking them out. You know, that's what he was doing when we met him earlier in the series. I think it's so cool that Charlie Cox did this. So awesome. Was that Benedict Cumberbatch? I don't think it was. I'm going to IMDb it after. Look it up. Let me know. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. Okay, so Daredevil's looking after Harry with his business because he doesn't trust any of the Osborns. He thinks maybe this is something that's corrupt or evil in itself, which will actually just probably have him cross paths with Spider-Man again. The lady who Daredevil is talking to, I don't know who that is. If it was someone introduced in a previous episode, I've forgotten. Can anyone tell me who that lady is who's going to be watching inside for Daredevil? I said Tombstone. Lonnie is invited to be a part of Harry's group as well as the leader now of the 10th Street Gangs, it looks like, with his powers. I'm sure there's a lot more Lonnie to come next season. It's just the saddest part for me was him throwing his jacket away. The whole story of Lonnie is like how easily in an urban setting or just a bad setting, you can get ripped away from a successful, happy life and into like a dark one like Lonnie. And like a lot of this started with him not wanting to do what he did just to help his brother, his family. He still probably got that same motivation. He probably believes he's protecting them now. Whatever that is, we've seen this character go from one extreme to another. And I praise him for taking the risk on this character. It just brings a whole other tone to the show. I feel like this is our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and not a Spider-Man who's about to go into outer space. Maybe he will one day, but not yet. Nico is performing like a magic ritual with her stone necklace. Opens up a mini portal and she calls it Mom. So that's probably going to be deeply explored next season as well. Very curious. Octavius in jail with all the tentacles. May goes to prison nonchalantly to meet Peter Parker's dad. What? So Peter Parker's dad's alive and in jail. Didn't know that. That's a new one. Reminds me a bit of The Amazing Spider-Man, where his parents get killed and there's a big conspiracy around it and he's trying to figure it out, but never does because the movies stopped being made, which was really okay at the time because we needed Tom Holland. That led to Tom Holland. Andrew Garfield is a national treasure, though. I can't wait to see the three of them together again. I just know it's going to happen. Sony will make that happen. Okay, I got to laugh at myself here. Something I wrote by Dr. Octavius is in jail, creating his arms. In parentheses, I wrote, foreshadow. Of course it's foreshadow. So like all great Spider-Man movies, shows, adventures, we get narration of Peter. I don't know if he's narrating, but he's flying through the city. He does say, I'm Spider-Man, and I think that's pretty cool. His new suit looks really good. The show has a lot of promise, and that's it. That's the whole show. I can't believe it's over already. What's up? Why so fast? We've covered a few shows since I've been back on the podcast, but this one, aside from What If, definitely the quickest and very entertaining season. As a Spider-Man fan, I'm very happy. I wasn't a fan of his first original suit, but that was his homemade suit version. So now I look back and I even like that a lot. I like the journey. What did you think? Again, one last time, MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. Leave me your thoughts. Also, leave a rating or a like or whatever you can on the show. Positive review goes a long way. If you have critiques, MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. I would really appreciate it. I'll talk to you about them, and I'm definitely always open to better myself. That's why I'm asking you guys. What did you think about the show? I loved it. I've said that a couple times. I think I'm just so hyper over the finale. Finales get me so freaking hyper. And when it's done right, it's just like you think at first this is another Spider-Man thing they're doing. How many Spider-Man things can we do? I hope this will be like maybe the last one, and all those other things continue along with this one. However, the Spider-Verse, like the multiverse, has its own infinite possibilities. So who knows what other projects from Spider-Man will be getting down the way. You know we'll do our best to cover them at Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show. This is where we're going to leave it for today. This Friday's episode is TBD. I'm planning my Daredevil recap. However, that's going to come out. Get ready for that. Daredevil Born Again, a few weeks away. March 4th. We'll be covering every episode, just my recap of the show up until then. It's not going to be messy, but it's going to be harder for me to do. It's one of the bigger projects I'm aspiring to do. But I'm going to do it for you because I love my fans. I won't even call you fans. I just call you a community. And I appreciate you listening always and supporting. And I'll see you on Friday. Until then, Avengers, Spider-Man, Marvel Maniacs, disassemble.